This presentation is about the media environment in Russia. I will start with a brief history of Russian media and then discuss the modern relationship between the state and the flow of information through television, internet, radio, and print media, the condition of free press in modern-day Russia, and my outlook for Russia's media future. Geographically, Russia is located in both Europe and Asia. It is the world's largest country in terms of territory and the ninth largest in terms of population, with 144 million citizens. 77% of the Russian population lives in the westernmost 25% of the landmass, referred to as European Russia. From 1917 to 1991, Russia was the largest republic in a communist state called the Soviet Union. In 1917, soon after the Bolsheviks seized power in the Russian Revolution, the Soviet government signed the Decree on Press, which made it illegal to call for open resistance or disobedience to the government. The Soviet government also made use of propaganda. One of the major themes of their propaganda was that of the new Soviet man, who was not driven by crude impulses of nature, but by conscious self-mastery. He would resist the temptations of capitalism because of his enthusiasm for spreading the socialist revolution. This new Soviet man wouldn't materialize, and the temptations of free markets and free press would eventually play a key role in the demise of the Soviet Union. In 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev became the leader of the Soviet Union. Gorbachev was from a younger generation than the previous party leaders and sought different solutions to the problems he saw in the country. His solutions were the policies that came to be known as perestroika and glasnost, which translate to restructuring and opening, respectively. With regard to media, this was an opening of the freedom of independent press. These policies would, in 1991, lead to the dissolution of the Soviet Union. 8 years later, Vladimir Putin would become president of Russia. Vladimir Putin has been the president of Russia for 15 out of the past 19 years and was prime minister the other 4. Putin's reign has seen a strong move back towards Soviet-style state control of the media. In a document allegedly leaked from Putin's 2000 presidential election committee, it is stated that the political directorate of the President of the Russian Federation should be tasked with gaining real control over political processes in Russia. It continues, the public part of the directorate's activity must be in absolute congruence with the democratic demands of society, but that this public part should be used to shield the secret part of the directorate's activities, which would include having the ability to tangibly and concretely influence the activity of mass media and the activity of individual journalists at all federal, regional, and municipal levels. So insofar as this document is representative of the aims of the Russian state, it would seem that the current government of Russia seeks to prevent any meaningful freedom of the press. The rest of this presentation will discuss the major forms of media consumption in Russia and how they are affected by government policies. In 2017, Russia was ranked 148 out of 180 on the World Press Freedom Index, due in large part to the state's direct and indirect control of the media and its treatment of journalists. The state largely controls television and radio, while online and print media are predominantly under private control. Televisions are still the most widely used media devices, with 89% of the population using them regularly. However, television viewing is lowest among the younger demographics, those aged 16 to 24, and is highest among those older than 65. 3 out of 4 Russians watch state-owned television as their main source of news. This isn't surprising, considering that 8 out of 10 of the most viewed television channels are owned either directly by the state, by Gazprom, a Russian state-owned oil company, or by National Media Group, an organization whose top shareholders have close ties to Putin. The Internet is the next most used and fastest-growing media source. Russians trust Internet news sources more than any other sources of news and are amongst the most active users of social media in the world. While the Internet is an inherently open, decentralized medium, the government is working towards getting it under state control. For example, SORM 2 is a massive surveillance system that allows the government to track the online activities of Russian citizens. ISPs are required by law to provide the Federal Security Service the ability to monitor the internet traffic of any online service that allows communication between two users. Beyond surveilling the internet, the government is also trying to censor what people post. If I were in Russia, I would be arrested for showing you this image of Putin. The number of people arrested for things they posted online has increased greatly in the past few years. During the 2016 presidential election in the United States, Russian troll farms sought to polarize American voters by posting memes on American social media and exploiting the United States culture of conspiracy theories. Back in Russia, radio and print media are decreasing in popularity. Only 25% of Russians listen to radio on a daily basis, and the most popular radio channels are music channels. Only 30% of Russians regularly buy print media. Estimates suggest that 58 Russian journalists have been killed with a confirmed motive since 1993. Many more have been assaulted or threatened. This leads to an environment of self-censorship in the community, where maintaining journalistic ethics or being critical of the wrong people can be an existential risk. The media environment in Russia is much like its physical environment: frigid, monotone, and deadly if you don't play by its rules. While centralized, authoritarian state planning wasn't feasible in the 20th century, there may be a time fast approaching when new technologies will enable a small group of people to exercise control over huge masses of people on an individual scale. Still, you can never discount the human spirit and its yearning for freedom. While the Russian state has clearly shown their willingness to disregard all human decency in favor of power, I still hope and have faith that it is possible that human decency and individual freedom will prevail. Thank you for listening.